Neverland is brought to you by mypodcastreviews.com. Check our affiliate link right there in the show notes or on our website to go and join an account. If you happen to have a podcast and you want to see your reviews you get from around the world, from every different possible place that someone could be listening and reviewing your podcast, you need to create an account. It's very inexpensive, very affordable. mypodcastreviews.com. They'll even help you create a link where people can review your podcast very easily that you can put right into your show notes. Once again, mypodcastreviews.com.
The following production is part of the We Be Geeks podcast collective.
All this has happened before.
Hey kids, Townsend Coleman here, the voice of Michelangelo from the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Tom Kane this is, the voice of Yoda on Star Wars.
Hey yo, it's Wopat, and a big yeehaw to you all. I used to be Luke too.
Hi, my name is Oli Shoshan. I play Jedi Master Shakti.
Hi, Butch Patrick here, Eddie Munster.
Hi, this is Jim.
Hi, this is Bill Farmer. You're listening to the Neverland podcast.
Welcome to Neverland, to Disney and beyond.
And it will all happen again.
And now your head lost boy, the Spider-Pan.
Walk on the eyes it is Pan.
Jeremy.
Hooray for
Disney! Take your pixie out of your pockets, Neverlanders. Sprinkle some pixie dust around. Think that happiest thought. Hi, Lost Boy Phil is here.
Howdy, howdy.
And we're going to have some fun today. I got a lot of different stuff. I've been building this up, really, I think, for a couple of weeks now because we didn't get to do a Valentine's Day show like I wanted to. So I have an idea for Valentine's Day. We're going to talk about some of our favorite Disney couples. I've listed a few of them.
Good.
So we're going to go ahead and talk about that. And, you know, I didn't get a chance to put things together. Things didn't come together last weekend, so we just had that fun time there. We got to hear some of Eric's audio out there in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, etc. last week. So I've gotten to build up all kinds of stuff. There's so much to talk about. We're even going to talk about some things I think that'll help you understand where some characters are coming from in WandaVision. I've been collecting a lot of information, and we're going to get into that. But make sure also you find Neverland Rock Radio on Spotify and Anchor. That is also a place that I'm creating. I haven't put anything out there in a while, but I'm able to play music on there, and so I'm having some fun. It's kind of a personal journal there. So there's all kinds of fun stuff going on, and we're just going to have to dive head first into stuff. But, all right, WandaVision. Here's some of the things. And you might remember that because when I was reading a lot of comics, I'd read Spider-Man. I used to read X-Men, like in the 90s.
Yeah.
So I wasn't paying attention to the Avengers like you were.
Yeah.
I think you were paying attention a lot more.
In the 90s and in the early millennium, I did. I got into it when I was going through my second brain surgery. Someone brought me the Avengers. And they first brought me the Avengers and Avengers West Coast. And because they used to have all that. And I read some of those and I enjoyed it. You know, that's how I got into Vision. And I kind of, to be truthful, I'm a geek, but not a shock. I'm on here. But I kind of fell for the whole love triangle, if you will. Not triangle, but the drama, if you will, of a android and a woman.
Or synthetic. They never call them so much an android. He's like a synthetic.
A non-human and a human being in love.
Yet
and all
kind
that.
of human in a lot of ways.
Very interesting. I thought it was almost dramatic and soap opera-ish in a way, because how can a human and an android, they can't really be together, but they're together. And it was very interesting.
And I can answer that question, and some of that you might have seen happen. So I've done some research. I've watched some videos on YouTube where people collect all the history, and I have got the information right for you, dear listener. So let's break it down, all the characters you wouldn't see in WandaVision. So we have Wanda Maximoff, formerly known as the mutant daughter of Magneto. Her and Pietro both were the twin children of Eric Lehnsherr, and a
Magneto.
Romani, or Magneto, and a Romani woman. That they were supposed to have all died, and for a long time, Magneto wasn't sure he still had those children. Magneto's had an interesting history because he had another child that was killed, and that's what kind of really turned him against humans.
And where do we know
that happened in Russia? That was a different thing.
Do we know which issue they showed up in of X-Men?
All right, now let's not make it complicated on me. I'm not grabbing issue numbers. I just want to tell the story.
It's X-Men number 2. I thought that was interesting. Because
what the Scarlet Witch and they showed up in X-Men number 2.
Whenever he showed up with all his little mutants,
was part of his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Okay,
that was when they first showed up.
Okay, I thought you were going to make it complicated on when the stuff I'm talking about now, because there's a lot of the history, and this is why my wife hates regular comics, and she looks for manga. Manga is always written by one person, and they just tell their one story. But the problem with that is once they're done, you're not going to get anything new. The problem, though, is that she has with Marvel, and I kind of have the problem, too, is retconning. Yeah, and I have to keep explaining her what retcon means. This is where they go back and they retroactively change continuity.
Yeah, and it's hard.
And it's happened so much.
They do it DC too, and it's hard to keep with.
Yeah, and that has happened so many times, and they've changed it because they didn't want to have them be mutants because they didn't have control of mutants in the films, and so they've changed it to where they are products of the High Evolutionary, but they are still children of this Romani woman. Which is weird. And so her magic is known as chaos magic, and she is also a nexus being, which means it's kind of hard to explain it when I've read it, but she kind of exists in all realities. In the entire multiverse, she's somehow or another there and can affect things in all realities. Very weird. Now, Vision has had actually several forms. He was originally built from the original android Human Torch by Ultron. So, for those of you who don't know, back in the times when Namor and Captain America were going back during World War II, there was a Human Torch who was an android. Mm-hmm. Before, there was a Fantastic Four Human Torch. So Ultron got that body and built Vision out of it, but his mind was created from the brainwaves of Wonder Man. So Vision actually was very human in the way he felt, had emotions and feelings. He was very human. He just had a synthetic body, which is why he's able to fall in love with somebody. Yeah. Which now in the MCU, you're used to he had the Mind Stone, and the Mind Stone's kind of what brought him around. So plus he also had the mentality, the artificial intelligence of Jarvis, which Jarvis is in the comics as a live human old man butler. Yeah. Very different. So the first time he was destroyed, it was a plot by Immortus, Master of Time, and he's an older version of a character called King the Conqueror. Now I find this interesting because there's been talk that maybe King the Conqueror is going to be the next big bad.
And I've been waiting for him. I like King.
So they have a potential to work their way that direction with WandaVision.
Yeah, and I think they are. And I think
it might be coming.
I think the mutants, going back to the mutants, they haven't been able to do that because they didn't have the rights to it because the mutants were
and now they do.
Fox, and now they do. And
now they do.
Slowly but surely, because that's why
it's going to happen.
And we just don't know how. I'm not trying to ruin this. I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you already know anyway. But
we'll try not to spoil an episode, though.
No, I'm trying not to. But they have used hints. I'll just say hints because I don't want to ruin anything. They've used hints towards the X-Men films.
Well, yeah, at least in one person.
One person. So therefore, I do think they're blending it. I think
we're learning some more about that character really quick.
I think they're blending it all in.
Yeah, they're gonna find a way to make it work. So
doing a good job.
Now, what Immortus did by destroying the original Vision, how he did it was he persuaded the government that Vision was a hacking threat because he could hack into anything, and so the government got him and took him apart. And Immortus also did this whole thing where he faked that he wasn't made from the original Torch, and so he, lost the whole identity of who he was. Hank Pym actually put him back together, and he had all the memories, but Wonder Man was not unwilling to share his brainwaves, and so Vision, this is the white version you'll see in the arcade, Captain America and the Avengers, the arcade game, where he had a white Vision. He's completely emotionless. He has all his memories, but he's emotionless. Now, during the time when he did have emotions is when him and Wanda did have a relationship. And oh yes, they did live in a place in New Jersey when they were married. So that is where that comes from. Now, Sword and Abigail Brand. This is actually pretty recent stuff in the grand scheme of things. This is the Sentient World Observation and Response Department. So Abigail Brand, Brand she takes on from a mutant power she seems to have because she seems to be half alien, half human with an X gene. So really her name is Abigail. She knows her father was an alien, which her father is some sort of green furry alien race, which is why she finds Beast of the X-Men attractive. And they have kind of a little thing going on. So Sword was actually first introduced in Astonishing X-Men Volume 3, Number 6, was created by Joss Whedon and John Cassidy. Sword was originally an offshoot of S.H.I.E.L.D., but since the departure of Nick Fury as director of S.H.I.E.L.D., relations between the two organizations have become strained, and the head of Sword is Special Agent Abigail Brand. Its primary command and control headquarters is aboard the orbital space station known as the Peak, which is kind of like the Justice League's watchtower in space.
Yeah.
It's very similar to that, except for the Peak has been darn near destroyed multiple times. All right, so Sword actually had an undercover operative in the X-Mansion in Astonishing X-Men Volume 3, Number 17. The identity of the undercover operative was revealed to be Lockheed. Lockheed is a dragon that Kitty Pryde had, Shadowcat, which I guess, because He's basically in some sort. He's from a sentient world other than Earth, and that's what they look at. So I mean, aliens, other dimensions. They look at a lot of stuff. But I also found some stuff about Jimmy Woo. Jimmy Woo is a descendant of Genghis Khan. This is a character that dates back to like the 1950s, 1960s.
Yeah, I remember seeing him when I was a kid. I remember reading about Jimmy Woo.
Yeah, I didn't know about him at all. But they had to be careful because, I mean, that's now because his villain, the Yellow Claw, would be considered slightly racist. For a while, they actually were drawing some of the characters a bit yellow, but now only Yellow Claw is kind of yellow because it's a thing. But they've learned, well, the Asian people are not necessarily yellow in color,
Quite frankly.
They're not jaundiced, okay?
I don't know if they meant it back then that way or if it was just a style.
It was really just kind of where, red and yellow, black and white.
Right.
We don't mean anything by it, but that was kind of where we kind of thought of people. But
yes, and the way they drew Oriental people back then, the way they drew the eyes, the way they drew the skin. Everything had a
it was caricature.
Tone.
Yeah, it was caricature because
best way to say it.
Everything has to be emphasized because they were trying to make sure that you got the idea that this person was supposed to be Japanese or whatever, or Chinese.
Exactly.
They would overemphasize characteristics.
That's it.
So it was caricatures, and they weren't meaning to be. It was very overdone.
Yeah.
And then, I think people have gotten better at being able to make people look more real, but it's hard to make a realistic person in
Keep in mind too, the coloring that they could do back then was a lot different, and they didn't have computer.
Yeah,
they didn't have
and
that
that's
ability.
why we actually had a gray Hulk, for a little bit,
for that one issue,
because they couldn't get him to be the green.
Well, at first they couldn't get the gray to work because that's why they went green.
Oh,
they
that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, they couldn't get the gray quite right. The gray kept changing from page to page. So finally, they decided by the next issue just to make them green and to keep it. They was able to keep it the same basic green, but they couldn't keep the gray right.
So that's what it was.
And it was the same with the
because I know he was supposed to be like Frankenstein's monster a little bit.
Yeah, that's kind of what had happened with also back then the skin tones. That's why everyone was pretty much pink. Everyone pretty much had a pink tone. Well,
everything looked a little weird.
Not to sound racist whatsoever, but if you was Caucasian, you was pretty much pink back in those days on comic books. I'm talking. But if you was an African American or black, because some people like to be called that, you had a basic same brown tone, and if you was an Asian of any sort, you were pretty much a yellow tone because that's pretty much all that they had.
Yeah, and so trying to come against them for that is like too
a little
much.
overboard.
But I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna dive into that here.
No,
I really won't. All right, so
you just have to take basically a bucket of salt.
Yeah, a bucket of salt. They're like most of the time they didn't mean anything bad by it. They weren't trying to be. There are people who have done bad things with stuff, yes,
but not everybody.
Not everybody was trying to do anything bad, and we didn't consider it any problem. Now, but it's the not that morality really changes; it's the social norms that change.
Yes, that's it,
of what people will call. Anyways, but formerly, Jimmy Woo had formed a group called the G-Men. I'd kind of like to see this become a series or a movie. This is a team consisted of a guy known as Gorilla Man, because he was a man who had kind of turned into a gorilla. M11, which I forgot who that is. The Uranian, and Venus, which Venus is, like the goddess of love. Venus, known as Aphrodite and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so this would be interesting. And after successfully rescuing the president, the team operated for about 6 months before it was decided the world was not ready for such a team and disbanded. Because these were, superpower, like almost godlike, these people. Because, you had one, literally, Venus. But, if you can have Thor in there on the Avengers, then Venus.
If you will. I love that also.
But after that, Jimmy Woo became head of the Atlas Foundation, and he actually turned into a force of good. That was the intention of the Yellow Claw, wanted him to be the head of the Atlas Foundation. And he had actually was throughout Jimmy Woo's life, he tried to orchestrate him to become the head of the Atlas Foundation, but Atlas Foundation was kind of an evil, corrupt organization. Then Jimmy Woo says, okay, fine, you want me to head this up? I will, but we're going to do things my way. And he cleaned it up and made it a force for good. So Jimmy Woo, I love that character. Ever since we met him in Ant-Man and the Wasp, that's where I first come across him. I really love that character.
Yeah,
and I'm happy to have him in the WandaVision. So following the dissolution of the G-Men, Jimmy returned to regular government work, and by the modern era, a still youthful Woo joined Nick Fury's S.H.I.E.L.D. organization, and during this time with S.H.I.E.L.D., he fought alongside Fury and Captain America, and battling what appeared to be a revived Yellow Claw. Now, I'm not going to say why this name comes up. Agatha Harkness. Now this woman's scary, but you never know whose side she's on. During the Salem witch trials, they thought that it was necessary to make magical people stronger. No, she thought, Agatha Harkness said the Salem witch trials were important. They need and necessary because she thought it's going to make us magical people stronger. That's how weird and creepy she is. So Harkness had come actually to the New World hoping to actually have more freedom to practice magic, and she started a coven of witches here in the United States. So here in a slightly more modern times, she is actually the governess of Franklin Richards, son of Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman of the Fantastic Four. And actually, this kind of happened, and there was a big, long, complicated story, but just to sum it up, she actually saved Thing of the Fantastic Four from the Frightful Four. Now, who are the Frightful Four?
Frightful Four are the people who fight the Fantastic Four.
Well, I figured that much, but who are they?
Well, I can't remember all their names. One of them was, with the long hair.
Medusa?
Medusa. And they changed several times.
And she's an Inhuman, isn't she?
Yeah, she's Inhuman.
Yeah, and she's sometimes good, sometimes bad.
But in the beginning, she was all bad. And there was I can't think of his name right now. He's got like a big head. And he has guns. I can't think of his name. But yeah. MODOK, yeah. He was one of them. And there was a few others. And a few of them has changed. Well, one of them was Sandman. One of the original ones.
Really?
Yeah, it was Sandman. And he was with that. He was Spider-Man first.
Yeah.
But then he went straight over to Fantastic Four and was one of those, the Frightful Four. And then I can't think of the fourth one at the moment, but they've had several.
I would imagine Dr. Doom would somehow or another be involved.
Well, I haven't seen it with that yet because he wasn't involved with them. But they've had several incarnations, and they always had that basic style where they're kind of supposed to be a bad guy version of the Fantastic Four, and so they try to have someone who kind of goes to compare with the good guy version, or if you will. I mean, the bad guy
someone to
version.
match up against.
Yeah, match up.
Really.
That's it. That's perfect. Match up with Visible Woman, and they don't have to have basically. Well, she goes invisible, so this one's more visible or anything like that. But they have someone who can match up perfectly well.
Yeah.
Imagine it like if you're a wrestling fan or not. But Survivor Series, you have four. At least in the later years, you always had
6 on 6 or whatever.
4 on 4, 5 on 5, whatever.
Yeah.
You'd have to have someone who would be a perfect match for Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
You have
someone who is like their top heel right now.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. That's it. Exactly.
So that basically sums it up. But eventually, so the Salem 7 took over the New Salem community, and they captured Agatha and killed her by burning her at the stake.
Oh.
In an ensuing battle between the Scarlet Witch and Salem 7, the entire community's energies were drawn into Vertigo of the Seven, who lost control of them. Wanda managed to capture some of the energy and funneled it away, but the entire town was still decimated. Wanda channeled the remaining energy to set in motion her becoming pregnant with her synthezoid husband's children. Now, that's also we're going to get into a bit more with the synthezoid husband and on the children that they have together, but that's kind of important there. So later, Agatha resurfaced, avoiding explanations for her return. She claimed that Scarlet Witch's children were actually fragments of the soul of Mephisto, and wiped Wanda's memory of her children rather than fight to free the two from Mephisto when he reabsorbed the two. I'm going to get into that later as well. But Agatha actually taught the Scarlet Witch how to use her chaos magic. So I'm wondering, I don't want to say...
Yeah.
I don't want to say, but I just want to let you know who that character is.
Yeah.
Agatha also went on to aid other mystics in a number of crisis situations and trained Wanda further in the use of her powers, claiming that her mutant ability was actually to use chaos magic and helpfully resurrect the Avenger, Wonder Man. And he fully resurrected him.
Yeah, I like Wonder Man.
I'm waiting to see him get to pop up.
You know that they've had hints of him, and that Nathan Fillion was sort of
He'd be so cool.
He had him in the background as Wonder Man, pre-Wonder Man, in a movie. I can't think of which movie it was right now. But he was in a film, and he was in the background.
That would be cool.
As pre-Wonder Man.
That would be cool.
I thought, wow, because that's a pretty big actor to have in the background. He kind of stands there.
Yeah.
One of the things I love on this show, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead of anything.
You probably are. I'm actually not talking about the show. I'm just talking about people popping up in this show.
Okay.
Because that's how we don't spoil anything.
Well, I don't want to spoil anything.
I'm letting everybody know what's some stuff that happened in the comics. And just to help give perspective on what you know if you've been watching the show.
This doesn't ruin the show. I was more or less saying I like how the show has given sort of winks to TV shows. And more or less, and what I like is it's not specifically a TV show that has been, but some things are obvious nods to, like, let's say, Family Ties. and
The Office,
and also Parks and Resurrection or whatever it is.
Parks and Rec, was kind of The Office.
There's kind of that, The Office, and things similar to that. Some of it is
recent
and
episode
it's pretty obvious. One of is obviously Bewitched, and Dick Van Dyke Show and little things like that.
But we've already discussed that, so we don't need to bring it up again. Yes, it is, but it's already been discussed.
Very similar.
I got a ton of stuff still to get through. So here's the timeline of things. All right, so the Timekeepers were worried about Wanda having children. They ordered Immortus to kill her, but instead, Immortus helped her relationship with Vision. Now remember, Immortus is King the Conqueror in an older form, right? And he's the one who eventually got Vision destroyed. Now, he even offered Vision to move his mind into Cap's body at one point, so Vision could have a real body. Immortus thought some other help in the relationship was going to prevent them from having kids and stuff. I don't know how that logic works. But, of course, eventually they were married, and the wedding was officiated by Immortus. They moved to New Jersey. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Okay. Wanda wanting kids, Wanda creates 2 souls from fragments of Mephisto's soul, as mentioned earlier, that Agatha told her about. Now, how this happened, Doctor Strange and 2 of the Fantastic Four had actually destroyed Mephisto, breaking him into 6 pieces. Now, if anyone doesn't know who Mephisto is, you're probably familiar with the term used for the devil as Mephisto. That's pretty much the dude in the Marvel Universe. He's kind of like the devil. So I'm kind of wondered, and some people have also been speculating, I've seen on Facebook, if Mephisto is going to somehow be involved. Who knows? We don't know. It would be interesting if they bring him in, because that would be good because Doctor Strange is supposed to get scary and stuff. I think Mephisto would be a good villain for Doctor Strange to fight next time. That might be what they're doing. That would be scary for what they're trying to do. So, it's a possibility, but I don't know for sure. All right, so the 2 boys are, of course, named Thomas and William. Their names were sort of mixtures between the original Human Torch and Wonder Man. They kind of mixed them around. Now, Mephisto turns a guy who was an actor, Martin Preston, into Master Pandemonium after Martin Preston had an accident and he was trapped by his arm and he lost his arm. And basically what Mephisto did is he put demons to replace the 2 arms and turned him into Master Pandemonium. And so Mephisto lies to him. Mephisto says, oh, well, you can go recollect your soul. Because basically Mephisto says, well, I own your soul. But he says, you can go recollect your soul. But actually what he was collecting was Mephisto's soul. And in order to do that, he was absorbing pieces of Mephisto, putting Mephisto back to power, and he absorbed Thomas and Billy. And that's actually where they ended up. At least for the time being, that changed here. All right, so long story short, House of M, where Wanda actually created her own reality. Which is still, it's her and Pietro as the children of Magneto, and it's a big complicated thing. House of M, yeah. But in part of it, she actually killed Wanda actually killed Vision and Ant-Man by destroying Avengers Mansion. Now, Tony Stark did later rebuild Vision and even returned him to his old green and red form and managed to restore his emotions. Ant-Man was brought back actually by his daughter Cassie of the Young Avengers in a time travel incident. It's a very, very complicated thing I'm not going to get into because I watched the video on it and it was complicated. But Cassie is important, and I wonder if the Young Avengers is coming. Because Billy and Thomas, we're going to find out later, are part of the Young Avengers as well with Cassie. Now, I think Cassie has gotten some of the growth and shrinking stuff. I think she's doing that similar thing. I don't know. But I figure that's what she does. But Thomas and Billy are actually reincarnated souls. And so they're somehow back. I don't know how that works. But they found each other. They're all grown up. But here's where the timeline thing things. Because, all right, so Peter Parker is still supposed to be in his mid to late 20s. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yet their 2 children have now grown up to teenagers?
But if you watch the show, they
kind of an accelerated growth. So that's why I think in the show they're doing that to just kind of cheat it a little bit. Mm-hmm. In the comics, they were like, what the heck? But they go, oh, they were just reincarnated souls. They came back older. Whatever. Comic timeline, it's hard to match
it. It can kind of make some sense. It doesn't make sense.
Now, so Thomas and Billy have come back as Speed and Wiccan of the Young Avengers, which I didn't realize that. So Speed, of course, we've seen. I think it's Thomas that has taken after after Pietro, and got the speed powers. And Wiccan has like weird magic powers, but they both became part of Young Avengers, and they were brought together actually by Iron Lad. Teddy is his actual name, who was part of the Young Avengers, but he was actually young King the Conqueror, and he was actually trying to prevent himself from becoming King the Conqueror. Very, very interesting.
I remember reading something like that.
Yeah, there's some crazy, weird stuff. Now, one other thing that some people are going to observe, and I bet it's coming, is Billy and Teddy had kind of a relationship.
I remember.
And I'll just leave it there. But I bet some people are expecting that. But I want to move on and jump into the trailer park.
Mama, another gator got in the house.
Another gator? Give me that sugar. Come here.
Get him, Mom. Get that gator.
The Neverland Trailer Park.
All right, now I know you've been itching about talking about this. So the Snyder Cut, we've got a full preview of the Snyder Cut for the Justice League movie. A 4-hour cut.
Yeah.
Because, now here's the thing. All of you DC film fans that were begging and clamoring for this, you just better shut up and like it. There's no guarantee it's actually any better whatsoever. It's just longer. But you better shut up and like it because you begged for this and they finally have caved. This is going to be on HBO Max. It's Jared Leto's Joker is back and people are trying to pretend they're excited. I'm like, you realize this is Jared Leto's Joker, right? And there's even something you just saw about that.
I wasn't too excited about a picture I saw where the Joker is wearing a crown of thorns, mocking Christ. Now, keep in mind, I'm a pastor and a minister, and I find that blasphemous, which it is.
It is. That is blasphemy.
Which he is a villain, so that makes sense for a villain to do, I guess.
Yeah, to do something. Yeah, bad guy does bad things, I guess.
The problem I have is we're in a generation where villains are more praised than the heroes.
We'll get to that one too. See what movie is coming next.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
That being said, one of the problems I have though is I'm not a Snyder fan. Most of his films have been garbage, in my opinion. Just my opinion. But this is not to say I thought that the Joss Whedon, even though I do like Joss Whedon as an individual, I didn't think that film was great. But the problem that I have is that he didn't make that film. That film was made by Zack Snyder.
Yeah, and they just put it together their way.
They threw it together at the last end, gave Joss Whedon just a short amount of time to put a little bit together.
Yeah.
But that's just how that goes whenever a movie is already pretty much made and you give a guy a little bit to work with at the last second and say, oh, here you go. That's just how it is. And if he had made it from the get-go, it might have been a completely different film. I mean, let's look at Avengers.
Maybe. And it might have been a much better film.
Yeah. But I just find it interesting. It's just like with, quite honestly, Man of Steel, which I thought was garbage. But Man of Steel, it's amazing to me that was Snyder's movie.
Yeah.
And they throw all the bad of that movie on the producer, which was the man who made the Batman films, the Dark Knight movies.
Them. Can't think of the name off the top of my head.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah. But Christopher Nolan.
And I apologize, but that's not his fault.
It wasn't his fault. It was Zack Snyder's fault. Zack Snyder's the reason why you have crap DC films right now.
Yeah,
and so you expect a 4-hour cut is going to be better?
But this being said, I'm going to watch it with an open mind and all that. I am.
Yeah. Because I did see it in the theater, and I did find some bits of it quite amusing.
Sure.
You know,
sure.
Even Batman vs Superman has its moments of fun that I did
like.
And
I said, I don't hate them. But with Snyder's films,
not something I planned on watching multiple times. That's for sure.
For me, watching Snyder's movies are like watching I don't hate them. I don't like them at all.
Yeah. But you're a DC guy, so you just love the. I still like those characters.
I like seeing Superman, but that's the problem I have with the Superman movies on him. He's not Superman.
Yeah.
And this is not the actor's fault even. It's just the way they're written. It's not. But the biggest problem I have though is that, for me personally, that people can say, "Oh, it's already all been filmed." I don't think so. When you get time for him to go through and edit with all this computerized stuff, you could add a whole bunch. He could have added, who knows? So, I mean, I'm not saying he has. I have no idea.
We don't know.
But that being said, it sure would be nice to have all the time in the world to add and take two and all this other stuff.
I'm sure he had a dedeadline, though.
Well, sure. Yeah. And I do hope it's good.
If you do want a good Superman...
I want to watch it. I am going to watch it.
If you want a good Superman, we did find out this... Well, I guess it was last week or something. We're going to get a Superman 78 series comic book and a Batman 89 comic book. Of course, it's going to be digital at first, 6 issues digital, and then 6 issues print, and then eventually all collected in one volume by next October. I'll wait for the fall volume in October and get the whole thing.
Well, those are my favorite versions of Batman and Superman.
Christopher Reeve is Superman.
That's it.
Let's face it. Christopher Reeve. They've never cast a better Superman. Although I do love Dean Cain as a person, he just was not as good as Christopher Lee.
I love them all.
Or Christopher Lee. Christopher Reeves.
Yeah, can you imagine Christopher Lee as
you have chosen death. Christopher Lee was a completely different actor. I love him though too.
I can't imagine it was Superman, but now you got that stuck in my head. Although he would have been good Zod.
You have chosen pain.
He would have been a good Zod.
Oh, him as Zod. Oh, heck yeah, dude. Back in when he was younger time.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to see that.
Oh, then get Peter Cushing to be Jor-El, that would have been awesome.
That would have been great. Man,
awesome. Somebody animate that, make it happen, because you can't do it for real anymore.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But the next movie we have on the list, and once again, I think it has a lot of copyright music, so I don't think I can actually play the audio of the trailer, so we'll just say Cruella. The movie we didn't ask for. When I first heard about it, I was like, why? Glenn Close was awesome.
Oh, she was
back in that live action.
Oh, yeah.
So since they already realized they had a live action, and this is where...
they did a good job with those movies, I thought.
Yeah, well, I didn't see the second one, but I liked the first one.
The first one was really good.
So the Brian of The Real Brian Show has... Because I talked to him offline and everything. He's got another podcast, The Real Brian Show. He says I need to actually start a segment called Make Disney Great Again, and maybe even some T-shirts. Make Disney great again, because they're not doing it Walt's way. There's a difference between Walt's Disney and the modern Disney, because one thing Walt said is we make money so we can make more movies, not we make movies to make money. Yeah. Now they're just churning out remakes just for money right now. And there's people that you love those remakes to death. I'm glad. Enjoy them.
I'm glad you do.
I'm glad you enjoy that, but it's a money-making scheme. They're just using characters we know, and they're spinning out stuff. And this really didn't look interesting at all. Although I do love Evan Stone.
Oh, me too. She's great.
She's adorable.
Mm-hmm.
I even like. I like her,
see it.
even though I don't really like that musical that she did.
I didn't see it.
La La Land.
Oh, I didn't get to see it. I heard it.
I don't want to spoil the ending, but the ending is what ruins the entire movie. Gets ruined by the ending. I will say I was enjoying it all the way up until that point, but she's pretty good. Although she's not, you can tell she's an actress and not a singer. But she's great though.
We're not Siskel and Ebert. If you like Snyder movies, if you like,
if you enjoyed La La Land,
that's great.
I did not like the ending. I didn't like that. That's not like it. I'm traditional musical. I love happy endings, and that movie does not have a happy ending.
Well, that may not want it then.
Yeah, don't, because you're like me. You want a happy ending to your musical. Yeah. You want Music Man. You want Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And you want Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that stuff. But when you go and you say, oh, well, let's be realistic about it. And, things don't always end in happy endings. Oh, you've ruined the what's classic and what's enjoyable about musicals.
Yeah.
Even, Hamilton has kind of a sad ending, but it's history. It still has a kind of cool, interesting ending. Hamilton, I think, did you get a chance to watch that on Disney Plus? Check it out, but put subtitles up because those lyrics come by fast.
Oh, really?
But I found it actually enjoyable. It's getting some mixed people. I think part of it is it's people hear so much about it that when it comes out, they're like, "Oh, I'm so tired of hearing of this thing that they didn't."
I see.
So I was trying to come in objectively, all right, let me see what this is about. And it took me a while to get into the music style, to get used to it, to where I was getting with the lyrics. But by the time King George comes out, he was so funny. I was like, okay, I'm invested. This was good. But I started getting into it, and there's so many different styles, because it's not, there's some rap in there, but there's a little bit of kind of that hip hop kind of, but like jazz style and bluesy kind of style. The music, it really was good. Yeah, I gotta say, I really enjoyed it. But Hamilton, it goes all the way up until he dies, so it's kind of sad he dies.
Sure, yeah.
But to think of the legacy he left, is kind of happy. He is part of history. He's part of our American history. All of us Americans, that's part of our history. And I love that. I enjoyed it.
I think they need to make Braveheart the musical.
Freedom as you rip out my intestines. Yeah. So Cruella, the movie we didn't ask for. And I don't know what they're trying to do with this, because it's like I don't know if they're trying. My thought is, I saw the first Maleficent movie. I didn't like it, and I'm not bothering with the second one. And I look at this, I think, same thing. I don't want it. Yeah. I'm not seeing it. I'm a vintage Disney fan, and I'm becoming less and less a fan of modern Disney. The more stuff they make sometimes, the more I'm like, ugh. Although I do kind of want to watch this new thing on Disney Plus I didn't know anything about, with the super squirrel.
Yeah, that looks interesting.
That looks cute. I'm going to watch that, and we'll maybe discuss it next time.
I'll watch it.
That looks adorable. I'm like, okay.
You know what? I will see.
Squirrels drive me crazy.
I will see Cruella because I think she's a good enough actress, so I am going to give it a chance.
Give it a chance, and I'll avoid it like I avoid Frozen 2.
I said to myself the other day, I said, what Cruella? And then as I said that, I saw who was playing her and all that. I says, why are they doing this? And then I said to myself, no.
Money. So the only reason they're doing is
who
money.
Who knows? I says, I'll give it a chance. I mean,
but I have a bad feeling they'll try to make a hero out of Cruella de Vil.
And most likely.
And I love her as she is as a villain. She's even scary in 101 Dalmatians.
Female villain.
She is great. I don't need any more backstory on her. Glenn Close played her to perfection.
It's kind of the same way I felt about Hook, who's my favorite villain. And when they took Hook and I now granted it was Once Upon a Time and everything's for the fun messed up, but
I didn't watch Once Upon a Time.
I didn't really either, but
I tried.
Someone I was once with did. So they had him at one point be nearly the hero. And of course, he was handsome.
And Peter Pan was the bad guy.
Yeah, and I was like,
"That's how you tick me off." Thank you very much. I am the Pan.
I was like, I'm done with that.
Yeah, that's how you cut me right out.
They said that they explained it later on. I was like, yeah, I didn't get to it. That kind of stuff just irked me.
No, yeah, I was irked. I was like, I'm not watching this.
That is kind of what made me quit watching the show. Actually,
I quit watching it after I watched the first episode.
Yeah, well,
so
I was,
I didn't even get through the whole. Yeah, but. Talking once again about my podcast reviews, and let me share a review that they have shared with me. This is from T. Dixon 508. It says, 5 stars and it's a great show. Thank you guys for the trip down memory lane. I'm a big fan of Disney. No shame here. I was a little skeptical about the new Scooby-Doo movie, but it was actually pretty good. Keep up the awesome work, guys. I think he's talking about, he probably heard where we reviewed, you watched it, so you probably were sharing about it. I'm still kind of like,
Yeah.
I'm probably going to see it eventually.
It's not bad.
The Scoob movie. But yeah, my podcast reviews if you're a podcaster for just $50 a year, you can get all of your reviews, no matter where someone leaves a review, sent right to your inbox. It's very convenient. I like it. And it's very inexpensive compared to what I'm paying to actually host this podcast. I have a link right on the front page. And the nice thing is my podcast reviews allows me to have this nice little thing set up to where the front page of my website at neverlandpodcast.com, I can have some reviews listed right there that will update as people add new reviews. It is a fantastic resource, and it even creates a nice list for you, listener, to come and leave a review, which please do. Please leave a review. But yes, mypodcastreviews.com. Thank you very much for being an affiliate and helping sponsor this show. But now it's time to get on to some main content.
To Disney and beyond.
All right, so I only listed a few. Now, these are some favorite Disney couples. There's a lot more I could go through, but I had to qualify this. I was not accepting any. If your name is Charming, you're not part of a couple. If you got 5 minutes in the movie, you're not part of a couple. I wanted to see these characters as a couple, and this ties in with WandaVision. We're getting to see Wanda and Vision, the couple. I'm including Star Wars, Marvel, Disney, Pixar, and just some of our favorite couples. And I've got a list here, but that's not everybody. We'll probably be able to talk about a lot more than what I've actually got listed. I was just trying to get started. And heck, we've only had the show, we still got at least a good 20 minutes of show here. So we're going to have some fun with this. And I clicked the wrong thing. There we go. Well, the first one I had listed of some of my favorite Disney Cuppies. Aren't we cute now? We should come up with names where they mix names together. So I'll call this first one Belst. That's terrible though. Belle and the Beast. Belle and the Beast. And you get to see the entire relationship go where they, barely even friends till somebody bends unexpectedly. You see the whole thing unfold, and no, it is not Stockholm Syndrome. If you say that, I will reach through the microphone and slap you silly. It's not Stockholm Syndrome. It's actually because she volunteers to stay there. And it actually fits very well with the original story. Disney Story Origins, another great podcast, actually did a thing recently on Beauty and the Beast, going through the original stories, which are very, very good stuff. But they pulled a lot of it into the film, but made the Beast nasty at first instead of being actually good.
And it kind of broke down the fact that he was nasty before he looked like the Beast.
Yeah,
he was
that's at least in Disney's version, but not in the books. The books, he's not nasty at all. Never was.
I like that he was kind of an ugly individual. Brat.
And we get to see him grow and become somebody new. And we see Belle kind of lose some of her preconceived notions of things.
Yeah, I like that.
They both have to change a little bit.
Yeah.
I love that.
She was a little.
That's still my favorite animated.
That was a great one.
I love it.
As far as
love
it comes
love it.
to romance, that's my favorite one.
Yes, love it.
And that to me really changed a lot of the films, the way they made them, and they did such a great job.
It's so fantastic.
I was watching it. To be honest with you, I watched it just a week ago. I was at home watching it. It moves me. I love that movie, man. When they get to dance, and that was the one that.
That's a good one. And I remember we were so excited before that movie came out too,
man,
dude.
I drew it. Remember, I drew it before it came out.
Yeah, and then we were watching that music video. It was on Disney Channel. You brought the videotape over to church, and we were watching it.
I still to this day when that part comes on, and the part where he goes to save her, and then she turns around and helps him because he got hurt from those wolves.
Yeah.
That's
such a moment. That really is something.
It's a great film.
It is such a fantastic film and a fantastic couple. Okay.
Well, people believe that the animated characters, they're just animated. They can't be look, animated or not, they can move you.
Yeah, because it's good story, and good character writing. It's just good.
That's right.
And everybody who worked on that, thank you.
Yeah, very much.
I loved it. Peter and Wendy. You know that had to be on the list. Now this isn't like a traditional couple.
No.
But I'm kind of blending in a little bit from Hook and for the overall mythos. Now, I learned something here recently. Speaking of Disney story origins, I was always confused between the difference. What is the Peter Pan book and what is the Peter and Wendy book? So the initial Peter Pan book was the play published in a book. Peter and Wendy was the novelization of the play.
Yeah.
And that's what I have on my shelf, like 2 copies of it. There's just marked Peter Pan. But they are the novel. They're not the actual play.
Yeah,
the novel's able to go into more detail.
Yeah, it goes into more detail, and it's the same writer.
Yeah, but it's a little bit more. Yeah. And I would like to read or see the play sometime. That would be fun. Although I guess I kind of did when we had the thing with Christopher Walken trying to be. I love Walken, but oh wow,
well, he did the best he could do.
I mean, oh wow. But there's I love the undercurrent that they like to put in sometimes when they make film of Wendy kind of liking him, but Peter, who was all against anything growing up, will just and I love in Hook the line. It's like I can't stand for her heart to be broken when she finds out she can't keep you.
Yeah,
and that's what in order for Peter, like in the movie Hook, which I know a lot of people didn't like it. I love that movie, but in order for him to grow up, he had to give Moira a real kiss.
Yeah, that's right.
Not a thimble.
And in reality, and I personally like Hook too. I wish I could go back in time and change a few things. But for the most part, I love that movie. I really do.
But
just like I said. They didn't have a lot of the computer effects stuff back then. But I personally think there was a little bit too much of the kid stuff in it. But like for instance, the fact kid rolling like a ball.
The silliness,
that kind of stuff.
I'm okay with that because it was Neverland.
But I like a lot of that. Dustin Hoffman, for instance. Oh my gosh, that's great. But anyway, back to Peter and Wendy.
Yeah,
I love that.
I love the undercurrent because it's like they're not
a couple,
really couple, but yet. We kind of always felt like there was
romance,
it's obvious that there's a spark between them, but Peter is just never going to hit puberty. So the next one, the first prince that actually got a name, and I know you got to love this guy because he's Prince Philip and Aurora. And I love that Sleeping Beauty has a story, and Maleficent, I hate that movie. They ruined it. But they have this cute story where Prince Philip and Aurora kind of meet in the woods, and they don't realize that they have been, their parents have already kind of arranged for them. And they go to like their parents are like, I don't want to marry this prince or this princess. I want to marry this person I met out in the woods.
And it's the same guy.
And it's the same people. And it's this build up. And then, I love that. It's a story. And Maleficent, that movie ruined it.
I didn't watch it.
It ruined it. I love the Sleeping Beauty movie. It is a great movie, and I love this is the first time we had a prince who was a real character.
I love that Walt and them used the music that was already in Sleeping Beauty.
From the ballet. Yes,
isn't that beautiful?
And it's such a uniquely styled film too. I mean, because it looks like a tapestry come to life.
Absolutely,
fantastic. Now let's jump over into Marvel for a little bit because I was going to list these two.
Well, you had to.
Peter and Mary Jane, Spider-Man and Mary Jane. Come on,
yeah, you got to give it to them.
Really, because I've heard it broken down by a lot of even Marvel writers when they consider the history of stuff. Gwen Stacy's only famous for how she died. She wasn't really that popular character at the time.
Until she died.
Because they didn't really have much development to her character. Now, they've done more stuff with her now. And I like, speaking of Emma Stone, I liked her portrayal of Gwen Stacy. Made it good. Made you feel it when you see her.
When she hit that thug. Oh, that broke your heart.
Oh, it did. It did. Although I knew it was coming, I was like, "Oh no, she's falling."
But when they did it, something about the way she was kind of making a noise. Boy, that got me. That got me every time.
I can see it in my head. It's horrible.
I hated the film, but
I actually liked it.
But she was what did it for me in that movie.
Yeah,
when she
did such a great job.
She did.
And I even liked golly,
I can't think of the name, but I know you're talking about
Spider-Man 3. She did a pretty.
Yeah.
Which the thing that I find is funny.
Ron Howard's daughter.
Ron Howard's daughter. Yeah, I was trying to get her name. I'm sorry, but you took the blonde. And turned into a redhead.
And then
you took the redhead and turned it into a blonde, and that's series. Y'all know what I'm saying, right? I always found that funny. But Peter and Mary Jane, they're all the ups and downs and weird stuff. And Mephisto making a deal to where they were never married, but they're now working their way to fix that in the comics.
Because it's so crazy.
Yeah, Mephisto again coming up in the show twice. Okay, so now we have to move into Star Wars.
Oh yeah,
we ain't even talking Anakin and Padme. That coupling sucked. But Han and Leia, you felt that. Amen. You felt it from the first movie when giving up the awards, and Han kind of gives her this, hey, look.
And in reality,
you saw that look.
And what's really funny is we know, at least us geeks know, that that's not how it was originally supposed to be written.
Yeah.
Originally, it was supposed to be brother and sister who weren't even brother and sister.
Yeah.
But there was.
But we saw that little thing. You kind of can watch this original Star Wars and see that look.
She got a crush on him.
There was a thing going there. Because you that's what they have that argument. That's always that. I call it Han and Leia syndrome, where you have that little bit of argument. Yeah. She's trying to get him to care because she liked him. I guess you only care about yourself.
I know.
Oh, Han and Leia, man, that's your power
favorite.
couple.
I love it.
And that's part of my problem with the sequels, is they busted that whole relationship up by the first movie.
But they kind of sort of fixed some of that.
Kind of sort of killed them before they could.
I still love Han in that movie too, though. He does such a great job.
Because we love Han.
Yeah, we love Han. Man.
Yeah,
and I love Leia, and I like that they did try to kind of sort of fix some of that too. I love.
They should have never broke it. Never broke it, and they especially not even letting us to see what happened. I will not forgive them for that. Anyway, moving on.
Love them. All right,
Eric and Ariel.
I was going to say,
there you go. Eric and Ariel, because although it's not my favorite Disney movie, my favorite Disney princess is still Ariel. It might have something to do with my thing for redheads. I don't know.
Too.
But Ariel was the first princess that was allowed to be funny.
And it was also the first of several things. It was the one that really, even before Beauty and the Beast, it was the one that started bringing the animated films back.
It was the beginning of the Renaissance.
Yeah.
Some people I've heard some people I want to consider The Rescuers Down Under, but that didn't quite gain the following that Little Mermaid did.
It had to. Well, and it was first.
Yeah, it was before it, but
not just that.
But it didn't quite.
Rescuers Down Under also was going against Home Alone, and so it didn't have.
But it was never. I never thought it was as good as the original Rescuers.
Well, I personally like it better. But that being said, that or not with Ariel and them, it captured several things.
I haven't watched it in a long time now. Think about it.
What I love about Ariel and Eric is there's no way on earth it could work, and in the book it doesn't. Yeah. And it's heartbreaking. And as much as I love the story, I love Hans Christian Andersen. But it's not.
Disney Story Origins actually covered this pretty well too.
I love the fact that some people say, "Oh no, give me the original every time." Well, look, here's the thing: Disney was brilliant. Why would you want to watch a cartoon movie where you get everyone's emotion into it and everything else and then destroy it? No.
Yeah.
They were brilliant, just like with other films like Hunchback and all. They're brilliant not to destroy.
Yeah, because basically it's too deep for them to be able to explain in animation what's supposed to really going on. Because, I mean, when you get into the original story and walking hurt her feet.
Yes.
But she would dance for the prince.
Yes.
But there's the quick version. Everybody says, "Oh well, she died and became sea foam." That's when you get into the rest of the book. That's not what she doesn't die and just become sea foam. She becomes this spirit, and she looks over the children. Because Hans Christian Andersen always had some sort of lesson, some sort of thing for the children.
Yeah, he did.
And she is an example of sacrifice and love. She's an embodiment of it in the book. And so that's great. But it's hard to communicate that in an animated film. So it's nice to go and have the happy ending.
Yeah, because plus you don't want the kids walking out there crying.
Yeah.
Which they would.
Because they wouldn't have understood what they were trying. If you try to communicate what Hans Christian Andersen was trying to communicate, it was really difficult to do.
Yeah.
Because Hans Christian Andersen was a brilliant. He was a genius.
He was genius.
He really was.
I watched the musical not that long ago.
All right. Before I get into the next couple of couples, I got other ones. I mean, I completely forgot about Elastigirl and Mr. Incredible.
Oh yeah,
I love them.
Oh, they're great.
You got to learn to be more flexible.
Well, as long as you're doing that, let's go to the opposite.
And plus Holly Hunter and
Holly
and Coach.
Hunter. Oh, you're talking about Neil.
I thought you'd have it because you watch more Coach
I love
than
it. I just watched him this morning on another movie.
Man, what is that dude's name?
Yeah,
but y'all know who I'm talking about. Come on.
Craig T. Nelson.
Craig T. Nelson. They're so great as actors and such great characters. Yeah, so that's definitely one of my favorite couples.
I recognize his voice even from the commercial long before they mentioned Incredibles.
It's like,
said,
Craig T. Nelson.
I was like, oh, that's him. That's Craig T. Nelson.
But yeah, you want to throw one out there?
Oh, yes, as long as we're going that direction, except that this is not Elastigirl. This is Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman.
Because they're Marvel characters.
Yes,
You're right, buddy boy.
I love them as a couple.
Yeah, there you go.
And I love that you have his best friend and her brother involved with the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why they're called the original family, the super family.
Yeah, the super family.
That's why you got the Incredibles have that whole hint all the time to the whole Stan Lee thing. And it's tremendous. And that is the family that brought us into the whole comic book realm that we're in now. Because that's why when people talk about Fantastic Four not really being that big of a deal, I'm like,
they're a huge deal.
They are the reason.
They just haven't gotten a good movie yet.
That's it.
But it's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming.
It's on its way.
There will come a day. We will have a great Fantastic Four movie.
There's other great.
And you know what? Can I just throw Steve and Peggy Carter in there?
Sure.
Cap and Peggy Carter.
Yeah.
I do love them. That's one thing that much as Endgame was kind of a rough one. Mm-hmm. The payoff for me is him and Peggy getting their dance.
Yeah, that was.
That made me feel good.
I also enjoyed seeing Tony Stark and his gal.
Yes, and wow,
Gwyneth
Paltrow, Penny something, wasn't it? No, it's not Penny. Wow.
Yeah, I think it was Penny.
Maybe is it Penny? Isn't that terrible? I'm forgetting stuff. Yeah. I'm getting old, y'all. Okay, I forget stuff. What's my name again? Okay. Yeah, there's some great Marvel couples out there when you really kind of dive in, but
I
so many
thought
favorites.
Betty and Bruce Banner was an interesting thing because
it's just too bad that we didn't bring Liv Tyler back. Although there was an interesting twist to have maybe him and Natasha having a bit of chemistry. That was interesting.
The whole thing in the comic book, and now they're not able to get into this extremely much and I don't want to get too deep into the physicality of it, but in the comic book. There was at one point where he couldn't become human again. Yeah. And she was a human, and there wasn't anything they could do.
But they were married together. At the time.
They were.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't know. It was a crazy thought. I won't go into all that.
And I remember being a teenager with that, and I always asked people, how is that supposed to work? Because, ouch.
Well, not just that. At that time, the Hulk was bigger than he'd ever been as far as
he was huge.
Physical. They had him standing taller. In some of the pictures, they made him really tall.
Yeah.
They had him so tall. His hand, I remember one picture they had of his hand like around her, and her body was nearly the size of his hand.
Yeah.
Now, this is whenever they could have him just get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And they kind of handled that in the film,
that original Hulk one. Yeah, because he'd get madder, he'd get bigger.
Yeah, and so I kept thinking.
And I actually kind of like the way the Betty relationship played out because I like that his first, that big Hulk out when he escapes as. When he sees Betty and he has that look like I've been looking all over for you when he calms down and turns back to human, that I loved that scene makes that movie kind of worth it.
And I like how the steam was coming off of it.
Yeah.
That was kind of cool.
Yeah. That's actually a great scene. I mean, it's not a great Hulk movie, but it has some great moments.
But you know what?
I even love it when he turns there in his house when that jerk is right there and you see him pound the floor and he's turning like, ah!
Great actor too.
Eric Bana did a great job.
But that's why I like whenever I kind of like that relationship because where everything else is what makes him go green, she's what makes him calm and come back home again.
Which is why we're not bringing Liv Tyler back, having the Black Widow have the thing, sun's getting real low, that she's able to calm him, to turn him. Yes. I kind of like that they kind of put somebody in that part.
Because you got to have somebody to be your relaxation.
Yeah.
And I understand that.
I'd love that in that original Hulk movie when he sees Betty. Plus, it was Jennifer Connelly was Betty.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, when he sees her and the look he gets, like, where have you been? I've been, what I've been through looking for you. And he just
let's not forget,
down.
It was Sam.
Excuse me, pardon me for burping there, Paul. People.
Sam, not Sam Neill. Sam.
Who played her father, Thunderbolt. Although I do kind of like the new Ross. I like that actor as well.
Oh yeah, he's a great actor.
It was nice to see him back in Civil War. Yeah,
William Hurt.
But yep. Every time I hear his voice, I want to eat beef.
Yeah.
Because this was for dinner.
That's right.
Yes. So, that's another great Marvel couple. Any other Marvel couples you want to throw out before we move on to my final top 4?
Oh, they got to be the top 4.
That's right. We probably better move on to the top 4 because we're getting kind of the end of the show. So the funny thing is, this is like the polar opposites of couples. Okay.
Yeah.
Daisy and Donald.
Yes.
They are, well, like Roseanne, the show. I was not a fan of the show Roseanne, but it was supposed to be, they're more like a real couple that fight all the time.
Yeah.
But they just love each other to death somehow. But they just fight all the time. And they're the complete opposites of the number one Disney couple, Mickey and Minnie, who've been together since the beginning. They're like the perfect couple. And, I will note, they have had their problems in some of the shorts.
Oh, yeah.
Like the Little Whirlwind.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not Mickey's fault. A tornado hit, things happen.
One thing I do like about those characters is not one of them are perfect.
Right,
and
right.
If you're perfect all the time, where does the fun come from?
Yeah.
You got to have
which
your mistakes.
is what makes that nice mix, because Daisy and Donald are always fighting. And I love it. Even in the newer shorts, they had this whole thing where Daisy and Donald are always fighting. It's like, why can't we be more like Mickey and Minnie? Mm-hmm. And then Mickey and Minnie have a blow up or whatever. And Daisy and Donald are like, oh, they're just like us after all.
Not everybody's perfect.
Yes.
Nobody is perfect.
But come on, Mickey and Minnie are the Disney couple.
Oh, they are.
And dang it, Mickey, if you like it, you should put a ring on it. Come on, it's been, have we gone on 90 years?
Yep.
I mean, come on, Mickey. Come on, Mickey. Come on.
Courage, buddy.
Get with it.
We're waiting.
Afraid of commitment. Totally afraid of commitment. You got problems, mouse. Don't be a mouse, be a man.
That's right.
There you go. All right, but I think we've fooled around long enough. This has been a good time. Hopefully you've enjoyed the show. If you've enjoyed the show, make sure you leave us a nice review somewhere, because it'll pop up on My Podcast Reviews, mypodcastreviews.com, or click on the affiliate link right there on the front of the page. Come back next time when I'm working on having another guest, JD, I think it's Sumter, big guy on radio dramas and radio comedies and all kinds of different stuff of modern ones. He does a show all about it, and I think we're going to have some fun. I'm probably will have him next week. Or next show. I'm working on that. I need to get a hold of him. So lots more fun to be had as we go to Disney and beyond. Hey, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Neverland to Disney and Beyond. And of course, I want to remind you to keep a pixie in your pocket. What do I mean by that? Well, that is that young at heart, positive thoughts that you're going to keep in your pocket and share it with other people. Pull out that pixie dust and share it. Make sure, of course, that you check our show notes right there in whatever app you're listening to. There's a way to find the show notes. Now, I don't know what app you're listening to, so I can't tell you the specifics, but go and check it out. Also, visit our website, neverlandpodcast.com. Make sure that you leave us a nice review on whatever you're listening to, be it Apple or Google or Stitcher or just about anywhere. Leave us a nice review, and we appreciate that. And also make sure you share the show with others, because we like to bring other people into our community. And of course, make sure you visit our Patreon page, patreon.com/NeverlandPodcast. We appreciate all of your help to keeping the magic alive here in Neverland. And of course, if you're looking for a bit more fun, go search for us on YouTube, Neverland to Disney and Beyond. Until next week, like I said, keep a pixie in your pocket.
Introducing Allbirds' new Wool Runner 2, redesigned to redefine comfort. Extra cushioning offers a plush ride, and premium materials deliver a cozy fit. Go to allbirds.com and use code FRESH24 for a free pair of socks with purchase today.
Get ahead of postage rate increases this year with Stamps.com. It's like your own personal post office. Sign up with promo code PROGRAM for a 4-week trial plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. That's Stamps.com, code PROGRAM.